Hello, hello, hello. Welcome this fine evening. Hello, Neko-san. Today I'll try to once again try and set up a Battle.net client because it's not as simple as it seems. We will see how that goes. First, some housekeeping tasks. Yeah, a quick test just to see.
Intel's in freefall. It's collapsing. In the
Yep, it seems like it's working. Okay, so basically, the Lutris client method did not work last time. Let's see if there are any updates. Obviously they are. Why does the pivo from Tesco taste so good? It tastes better than beer. my my guy, Tesco has been outed from Poland for at least 7 years by now. We no longer have Tesco's. I don't know. They just took off. We used to have it all. We used to have 24/7 Tesco's, but now we have nothing. I myself remember going to the 24/7 Tesco on at 3 a.m. or something like that, just to do groceries where it's like the least, the smallest number of people. It was fun doing groceries at the very unsavory and late hour of the night. Maybe there have been some updates. Maybe. Let's remove everything. I think last time I've had some wine assertion errors. I also wonder if there's any alternative to the Lutris method. I mean, we've tried the Steam app with Proton emulation, but... well, maybe not necessarily emulation, but anyway. Okay, 70%. I mean, I really need to have some content ready to just be able to watch it next to this, because this can take a long... I mean, this shouldn't take as long. Last time, just downloading the stuff took like 20 minutes. But still, it's so random. What? Downloading GE Proton. Hmm. And there it is. Assertion failed. "20 minutes for BattleNet, that's insane." There is something weird going on. I mean, this assertion fails and pretty much everything breaks. Which I would assume is mostly on the wine fault. But still, I don't know if there's any other method of getting BattleNet. Like, I know that people are supposedly doing it, but though I guess it's better than repairing a broken NVIDIA driver in Linux. Do they even break? I mean, most often people who have issues with that are simply on laptops, and laptops are weird. Hmm. Why are those results translated to Polish? Why is this translated? Why? Jesus. Okay, official BattleNet forums post. This might be interesting. I mean, the worst part is that I see that people are juggling with wine, with Proton, and stuff like that, but I don't necessarily see like easy way to mess with that during the installation process from this menu. It was a meme I saw, though my friends have a lot of problems with drivers. I mean, drivers work a bit differently. I mean, not really, but they kinda do work a bit differently in Linux and Windows. I mean, in Windows, you recognize that you can see that the device is unrecognized, and then you install a driver for it and stuff like that. In Linux, if your device is in the /dev, then the driver has pretty much done its part. Or if it's visible via LSPCI or stuff like that. And like I said, with laptops, it's a whole different ordeal, because they very often have custom motherboard or custom whatever hardware, and they basically closely collaborate with manufacturers, with Windows, with stuff like that. Hmm. I would really love to customize some more. I do know that this, even if this installation succeeds, because it did succeed, after I log on to my Battle.net account, basically the app is empty. There's like, it could not fetch a page, which basically gives you the clickable button to install whatever game or stuff like that. Whoops, there was some magic. You see, process exited. So it did not actually succeed, but because the process has run its course, then you know, one little thing I have in the back of my head is that I hope my Battle.net account won't get banned for this. And the thing is still hanging. Okay. Yep. Please terminate. Okay, use Proton 10 beta. And this is like 3 months ago, so I would say this is one of the most recent things I've seen. RIP, this will be a long time then. I still have 2 popcorns left, so I'm fine. I mean, I don't necessarily plan to spend as much time on this, you know, just to basically achieve nothing. I mean, I do wonder how people are doing this. I mean, we can try the Steam method once again. Yeah, I mean, it's too bad that you cannot download Blizzard games or Battle.net games without the Battle.net app. I should still have the Battle.net installer. Yep. Okay, we'll add that. Okay, but I see I have Proton 9 and I maybe have chosen too low of a version. Okay. Yeah, I might prepare my Battle.net login credentials. Okay, supposedly it's done. It should install Battle.net on your system as a Steam app. Why can I always turn off the automatic translation. So why I cannot do this right now? Why is this even on? Why is Reddit literally retarded? I mean, I also might have just simply started doing this at a bad time where there's been some sort of update to the Battle.net which breaks everything and nothing is patched yet. But I think that if you skip the first hurdle of installing Battle.net and downloading Warcraft, then after that you're fine. So maybe just not many people are doing fresh installs and they are just simply living with a system that has it already or has had it when it was working. But even still, then you need to launch the Battle.net app to upgrade World of Warcraft, right? Okay, there's... Jesus. By the way, Proton Plus. What the hell is Proton Plus? Manage supported compatibility tools across supported launchers. Change compatibility tools supported launchers. I mean... It's so bad. Like, imagine being just a complete enthusiast. $74, and I've seen it move a couple seconds ago. Ugh. Sorry for yawning. Ever since I've been 75%, so it is moving, albeit very, very slowly. Jesus, we need to do something in the meantime, like just so we are not too bored. It's 9:30. Don't worry about it. Yeah, same here. I'm so detached that I had to check my own clock. I mean, if we only could watch Dan on stream, the season 2 is pretty good. 76. I mean, is there anything interesting we can watch? I mean, Intel is falling apart, right? Let's verify this with the stock market. What's the Intel price right now? $20 a share. I haven't watched the trip, maybe VR chat drama slow. I only watch whatever VR chat clips that TikTok or whatever suggests me. I think the one drama I've enjoyed lastly the most was the uh, what's his name? Oh my god, Pirate Software. Because it was just, I mean, enjoy in terms of it's pretty funny to see basically people digging up some clips from streams from the past year or two. 3 hours, 3 weeks ago, the perfect mini home server. That's interesting.
Tiny mini microsystems like this are extremely popular on the used market, especially in the home lab space. This makes a lot of sense. They have solid performance, a small footprint, and you can often grab them for under $50. Well, at least certain models like this Gen 3 HP Elite desk. But if you start
Let's give this BattleNet, I don't know, like 3 more minutes. I have a phantom sense, don't walk through me.
start looking at something just a few generations newer, you're probably going to pay at least double. Is the performance or efficiency twice as good? Well, spoiler, no. But these somewhat newer HP Elite and Pro desks have a lot of interesting and useful features, and this might just make them worth the extra money, especially if you like to get a bit hacky. Oh, and if you're lucky, you might be able to find a really good deal on whatever this is.
By the way, I really like those mini servers, basically, that you can use for home lab. I have like one such small mini server, but they do have some drawbacks. And the one thing I kinda don't like about them is the form factor. I mean, it is like their selling point that they're small, but just, you know, to be able to fit those neatly in a rack, it can be difficult.
Whether you're using one of these little PCs as a desktop, a home server, or something else entirely, chances are you'll eventually run into a situation where having a solid VPN service comes in handy. Fortunately, today's sponsor, Private Internet Access, has you covered. Now, odds are, if you're watching this, I don't need to explain to you.
This is something that they are cool. I kind of like them. Yeah. I mean, I have one that's bigger just to be able to fit in some full-sized PCIe slots. But what I wanted to say, this is my measure of how good an IT channel is. If they are shilling VPNs, because, I mean, I wouldn't, right? But if they have decided to do so, will they do it truthfully, without false bullshit?
What a VPN is. You might already be self-hosting your own. I run a few VPN servers myself, but I've also been using PIA now for over a year, and it's been great. I've had no issues, I get fast speeds, and I love having access to tons of servers all over the world. It's perfect for those occasional yet critical times where I need to access geo-restricted content or websites. I also really like that I can use it on as many devices as I want, from my laptop to my phone, or heck, even my router. And if you've decided that this is finally the year of the Linux desktop, well, good news. It works on Linux too. It can also be helpful for your home lab. I've been running PIA with a Docker container called Gluten to easily route other containers through their servers with no issues. There's also a ton of other helpful features like port forwarding, split tunneling, and more. And they follow a strict no logs policy that's been audited by third parties. So if you're looking for a fast and reliable VPN service, make sure to check out PIA by using my link down in the description below. With that, you get 83% off plus 4 months for free.
Okay. He's getting a passing grade because all of those statements were, I mean, I can only like raise my eyebrow for one statement about the no logs policy, because you kind of don't know that. And I mean, sometimes you really need to dig deeper into those third parties that do the audit, because most often what it turns out is that company that's doing the audit is somehow connected to the VPN company itself. But TLDR, as long as the people shilling VPNs are not saying that, you know, it increases your security or anonymity, which is just false. It's just not true, especially not in the way they advertise them as, you know, avoid commercials or being target or having targeted ads, etc. Then I guess it's fine.
If you've watched my channel for any amount of time, you've probably seen one or two of these tiny mini microsystems. Also, I guess I've never really explained the tiny mini micro name, but that term comes from the names of OEM office systems that come in, well, this form factor. For Lenovo, it's tiny, for HP, it's mini, and for Dell, it's micro.
Oh, by the way, don't be an idiot and don't use Google. What should I use then? I mean, to be honest, Google has no alternative. And I do use VPN. I mean, I self-host one, but I am also using NetBird because it's like it gives you point to point between clients. It only acts as a lighthouse, which means you are not connecting or pushing data through a central server. I mean, using VPNs is fine if you know why you are doing it, or if you have a certain need to do so. It's just that I've seen many channels, not necessarily tech related, but the tech channels also can, like, I've seen some do it where they basically give you non-true statements or semi-false. Let me just quickly do this. Oh, yeah. My Authenticator app should be working now. Oh, I guess my Wi-Fi kinda lost its mojo. I did have to get my router replaced because the previous one was acting up and I had to go to my ISP to get it changed. I use Zen browser for its customizable code, and I use Brave search engine because it's just the best one there is. It's not. Personally, I fucking hate Brave. Those fuckers at Brave costed me my hobby project launch because they have purely retarded warning system when it comes to scam websites. And it closed to unexpected errors. So no cigar. I mean, what is Zen browser even based on? Is it based on Chromium or is it based on Firefox? Right, Gecko is Firefox. So the question, I mean, because I've heard, I've attended one security webinar, and it kind of changed the way I view browsers. So if you are using a fork of a browser or some side project. The problem is that if there is a 0-day or a vulnerability, the first like point where the fix gets fixed and applied is at the main browser source. So basically, for Gecko it's Firefox, for Chromium it's Chrome. Maybe Microsoft Edge has its own dedicated team that either works closely with Chrome or they do stuff on their own. But all of those side projects are basically waiting for the fix from upstream. Then they need to integrate that into their own project, and only then they push out the fix to the users. And the question is that, who do you think has bigger security team? The Firefox on the Zen or the Zen browser? The Google Chrome or the Brave browser? Like, this kind of changed my outlook, right? And also Brave, I fucking hate their cryptocurrency pushing agenda. For VPN, I just use private DNS. Using private DNS is fine, but the problem is that DNS queries are not encrypted, which means that you can use whatever DNS you want. Your DNS queries are clearly visible to whoever's listening, unless you are using the HTTPS DNS. But that's the problem with using with setting secure DNS is that very often, if it's not working, the first thing software sometimes does, especially phones, is that they fall back to some other whatever DNS, which kind of happened to me, and it was a tough lesson. Show installed only. Okay. I mean, I don't mean to rain on your parade, but lotteries. Why those UIs just suck so bad? Like, so many people need to read this book. Who are trying to do UI. Install Proton Plus, launch. Locate wine version, Selene wine staging. But I don't have this because I have everything separated via Flatpak. Why? I remember whenever it was the early days of Flatpak versus snaps versus app images debate. Like, app images got phased out from that debate fairly quickly. But this is one of the many problems there are with solutions like snaps or Flatpaks. Honestly, I understand what you said about Brave, though. I only use search engine. I mean, sure. I mean, I've tried using like DuckDuckGo and I don't know, maybe something else, but I mean, Google still has pretty decent results. Like, I always just fell back to Google because I was irritated that, on Google I would have that, what I wanted to get on the first page. And with DuckDuckGo, like, it really got up to a point where just it basically was non-functional to me. About no. By the way, why Steam? Why Steam? Did I maybe click something? I mean, it's completely not seeing the Lutris. So maybe I need to launch this. Now launch this and nothing. Okay, I think I may have... I would like to say one other idea, but is Lutris, like, what's the default method of distribution? Like, if it's Flatpak, then I got better results with Brave, plus I want privacy, and since Google just likes to take stuff from you, I switch basically everything to open source apps. One problem is YouTube. How do I tell you this? Brave is also stealing your privacy data. Like, there is no privacy in today's internet. Like, first of all, if somebody's telling you that they do not earn money on your privacy, what they want to say is that technically, to this legal document, we anonymize the data, which means that we are not technically selling your privacy because it's anonymized. But if you go into very, very technical details, that's first of all, even that legal like way of putting it is not necessarily true. And still, like, they have to earn money from somewhere. Like, I mean, so many things in today's internet are just designed to track you, and even if there's anonymized like records, you can still get, I want to say, get tracked. Like, cookies are basically and browser fingerprinting. It's like this. I've heard this one anecdote from, I want to say, even pre-internet times, when they were like doing, you know, when they tried to tap into your phone line to record what you were talking on the phone, right? So this one guy said, I do not need to know what you talked about. I only know that you called the suicide hotline. Which I think is a great example of how metadata works. Okay, so there is like a main thing in Arch. So let's do that. Let's first of all remove this. And just install it bare onto our system. And maybe, I mean, let's give it a chance. Maybe now it will just work. So, wait. Let's give it a chance to download everything. why Ubuntu 8004? Never die, never end. Okay, let's give it a chance to update. I could play Final Fantasy 11 using Wine back in 2014, but Battle.net insisted on Windows, so I said nah. Well, I mean, can you still play Final Fantasy? Like 11. Okay, I never played that one. I played... Yes, I've played this one a bit, but I hated the MSQ. I mean, BattleNet in system. I mean, it's not it's not a surprise, because to be honest, whenever you are developing a software, you choose the system you develop it for. Like, there are very basic fundamental differences in the way you develop software for Linux and Windows. Like, the first example I got taught at university was basically fork. Okay. Basically this. If I remember correctly, and by the way, I am not a programmer. I haven't do a proper programming, a serious programming in a long time. But if I remember correctly, this is exclusive to Linux, because Windows does not handle processes the same way as Windows does. So you just cannot do that in Windows. So as a developer, you have to pick what system you are developing the game for. And with Windows, you can support it. With consoles, you basically have a steady releases, and you know that the console will be alive for 10 years, and it will basically running the guaranteed software. With Linux, oh boy. Like, Linus Torvalds once said that he is fighting to the death to not make any backward compatibility changes with glibc. And I am always fearing that the moment Linus Torvalds closes his eyes, Linux is completely fucked. I played Final Fantasy XIV some weeks ago. By the way, I think I stopped at Stormblood because, I mean, whenever I started playing Final Fantasy XIV, it was the moment where basically everybody started hating on WoW and started switching to Final Fantasy. I really like the mechanics, the systems, stuff like that. But the goddamn main quest, the main quest that is mandatory in Final Fantasy XIV is awful. And not enough fantasy for the price per month, sheesh. And the expansions, the story is so awful for me personally. And Stormblood was the intro, the first act of Stormblood was so terribly bad and childish. I because my girlfriend loved Final Fantasy XIV, we played for a while, but then I dropped off, and she took off basically. But I basically say that the people who play Final Fantasy XIV and end up really liking it have never seen an anime in their entire life. I mean that jokingly, of course. But there are so many cliches, anime cliches, and I mean, I could basically write a video essay about how I hate the main story quest in Final Fantasy XIV.
If you scroll on r/homelab for more than 5 seconds, you'll come across these being put to use, and for good reason.
By the way, we are once again getting a terrible download speed. Like, Jesus. Just so you have full view of the situation. Like, this is a gigabit. Animations. Hello, hello. Why is GitHub? I mean, I think that GitHub somehow detects that the third party is downloading from the releases. And maybe they're basically doing a choke point there.
The name suggests, they're small, and they're typically very efficient. And since they were designed for businesses and enterprises, they often come with some helpful features, such as options for remote management. You can also find great deals on these on sites like eBay. For example, this HP EliteDesk G3 Mini with a 6th Gen i5 can probably be found right now for under $50. I've used this thing a ton on the channel because it still works great for tons of applications, but this is pretty much the most modern.
Though I don't know why you would want Xorg in this day and age.
Tiny mini microsystem I've ever used, so I decided it was time to try something else out. So I picked up this HP ProDesk 600G6 Mini. Now if you just go look at the buy it now prices, you might find listings for these well over $200, but if you're patient, you can probably win one in an auction like I did for around $150 plus $15 shipping. Unfortunately, I didn't realize it didn't come with an AC adapter, so I also had to buy one of those as well. The unit was in pretty good shape when I got it, aside from just some typical dust buildup. Fortunately, one of the other great things about these systems is that rather than having to remove a ton of screws or anything, you can simply loosen a single screw on the back to open up the case. This gets you access to just about everything, and then to get to the RAM, you can just lift up the fan. You can also loosen 3 screws to take off the CPU heatsink, and oh my goodness, that's a lot of thermal paste. 1 second. Okay, that's better.
On Gen 2, once again, I have no idea why you would want to use Xorg. Do you have like some specific use case for it?
With the case opened up, it was really easy to dust everything out so that we could get a good look at what all this little ProDesk has to offer. The CPU in this unit is the Intel i5-10500T, a hyper-threaded 6-core from Intel's Comet Lake lineup. It has a base frequency of just 2.3 GHz but can turbo up to 3.8 GHz. It features Intel's UH.
Did I see this correctly? Is this CPU exchangeable? Is this like a proper socket? That's cool.
Intel i5-10500T, a hyper-threaded 6-core from Intel's Comet Lake lineup. It has a base frequency of just 2.3 GHz but can turbo up to 3.8 GHz. It features Intel's UHD Graphics 630 and can support up to 128 GB of DDR4 2666 SODIMM memory, although my system just came with 16 GB. The inside includes 2 NVMe M.2 sockets that both support PCIe Gen 3x4. There's also an M.2 eKey socket for the included Wi-Fi card that supports 1 lane of PCIe Gen 3.
That's nice. 2 fully functional M.2 for NVMe with an Wi-Fi card. How do I migrate from Xorg? You reinstall your whole system.
Now there are a few more useful features on the inside, but we'll come back to those here in just a minute.
Maybe
on the front, you get some pretty standard I/O with 2 10 gigabit per second USB ports, with one being Type-C and the other being Type-A, and then you get another Type-A 5 gigabit per second port. There's also a combo audio jack and the power button. On the back, you get 2 DisplayPort 1.4 outputs, a handful of 5 and 10 gigabit per second USB Type-A ports, a gigabit Ethernet jack, and the DC barrel plug for the 19-volt power supply. Now there's also this USB-C port here, but this actually comes from what's called the Flex I/O port. Well, this is the first Flex I/O port, which can be swapped out for a variety of modules, from HDMI adapters to Thunderbolt to even network interfaces.
I use Xorg because it's really easy to configure with like Xinitrc, and also most Windows managers are based on Xorg. Also, Xorg provides most stability. Why would you even want to configure like Xinitrc? I have to say, like, almost everything supports Wayland by now, and they are only backward compatible with Xorg through Wayland-Xorg or whatever.
There's also this blank panel here for the Flex Port 2, which is just for USB 2 or serial. However, on some of the EliteDesk models, not the ProDesk models, this is actually where a dedicated GPU could go. Now, we'll definitely be coming back to these flex ports here in a moment, but first, what's that mystery system I mentioned in the intro? Well, this is actually an HP Engage Flex Mini, which is part of HP's Engage lineup. These systems are primarily designed for point-of-sale use in retail and hospitality sectors, which means this little Flex Mini is completely different from the ProDesk. Sure, they share the same form factor, they have the same I/O, they look nearly identical, but okay, yeah, from what I can tell, this Engage Flex Mini is basically...
Why would I want a Battle.net on Linux? Simple. Somebody on Discord said that they have a problem with that, and I was like, okay, this is the one game store I haven't tried yet that I actually do use on my Windows PC. And they also said that they have some problems with that they are playing WoW with stability, and personally I haven't like encountered problems with stability on Steam games, maybe with GOG games also, not necessarily. But to be honest, I haven't played very much those games on Linux. So I thought that, hey, it might be a fun idea to just try and play WoW on Linux. It turns out it's hell of a difficult to just install Battle.net. So here we are. To me, I love shell scripts, so Xorg makes sense. Like everything is based on scripts. Like Xorg is not exclusive to that. Xorg is getting less and less support. Xorg, I mean, you know, do whatever you want, right? It's just like weird to me. Also, most Waylands are pretty bloated. KDE, GNOME are bloated, in my honest opinion. I mean, this is KDE. I mean, it's fine. Personally, I'm using Sway, which is basically i3.
Basically the exact same thing as the ProDesk, aside from just a few small details. First, there isn't a product name on the front of the case. Also, the Engage system doesn't include a Wi-Fi adapter. And the motherboard is a slightly different revision, although really the only difference I could find is that the VRMs were soldered into slightly different places, but the number of the VRMs was the same on both. Oh, yeah.
The one question is, do you have like GPU acceleration with Xorg? Because let me show you this. Those basically are processes on my GPU.
And the CMOS battery looks a little bit different, but that's because somebody didn't know how to get the battery out properly and broke it. So I had to super glue on a little 3D printed part to fix it. So yeah, these two systems are pretty much the same, except the Engage came with 8GB of RAM and an i3 10100T. This CPU is similar to the 10500T, but only has 4 cores and 8 threads, a higher base frequency, and half the cache. Now, I would love to say that these lesser-known point-of-sale systems can be bought for quite a bit cheaper, but that doesn't necessarily seem...
By the way, I hope you are not getting any ads. YouTube has recently monetized my channels, and I am getting suspicious amount of messages where they are like, let us manage ads for you on live streams especially. So it is weird, and I once again hope you are not seeing any like live ads. Not too sure of the point of NVIDIA SMI. You mean the program in general, or what I showed? I mean that Wayland is capable of using GPU for user interface acceleration, basically. And this is the proof that the UI uses GPU to basically render everything more smoothly. And this is not, I'm not saying that Xorg can't do that. I'm saying I don't think it's doing that. on the recent hardware, etc., etc. Let's say you have a fairly recent card and stuff like that. I mean, if it does that, then okay, fine. But I just don't think that Xorg has that much support.
To be the case. In fact, it seems to commonly
Oh, did it install meanwhile? Okay. Gosh, I remember being told I don't need 2 monitors. I have one bad experience story with Xorg. So at my institution, we have this big display wall made out of 4 by 4. Yeah, 16 screens, 16 monitors, and we've had like specialized HP server which had like 4 GPUs, and each one of those GPUs had 4 DisplayPort outputs, and the server had been installed to basically have dual boot with Windows and with Linux. Linux had Xorg. Windows had whatever Windows has. Let me guess. I will leave to you to guess which one gave no issues with configuring 16 screens and which one constantly broke. I love suckless software like DWM, STD, dmenu. I compiled this whole manual with make and doas make clean install. If you're wondering, doas is a sudo alternative. Yeah, I know what's that. I know what it is. Sudo is bloat, I would say. Jesus, now that my channel is monetized, YouTube really wants me to roll ads on stream. Maybe someday, but not today. Okay, creating wine64 prefix.
be the opposite. That being
16 sounds extreme. Yes, it was extreme. We also had like some NDA drivers from NVIDIA for that, for both Linux and Windows. And on Linux, basically Xorg was terrible experience. It basically overwrote its configuration. It all the time it looked like every reboot of the server, it basically did some random screen number assignments, right? So the screen that was, let's say, number 1, after a reboot was, I don't know, number 8 or something like that. And then all the mosaic broke. On Windows, there was no such issues.
being said, I did buy my Engage Flex Mini for just $160 plus free shipping.
But I do realize that this is an extreme example.
Now that's not that much cheaper than the ProDesk, which also has better specs, but I did win the ProDesk in an auction, whereas with this system, I just bought it using a buy it now listing. There aren't a ton of these point of sale systems on the market, but it's still possible that you might be able to come across one. And
I would love if there was like some sort of more expert way to know if this actually is doing anything instead of just this whatever small wheel turning.
find a good deal in the future, and pretty much get a ProDesk. It's no silver bullet for getting a good price, but it is one more option to be aware of when you're out there searching for good deals. Now there's also the option of getting an Elite Desk, which I've mentioned a few times now. From what I can tell, as long as you don't go for one of the GPU-equipped models, these are very similar to the ProDesk in terms of core features, but they might come equipped with higher-end CPUs, and therefore more power phases, and I think even a mesh lid to help with thermals. There also might be a few more helpful enterprise features that only work with the Elite Desks, but sadly I can't say for sure. I did buy one, but it's taking a long time to ship, so at least at the time of filming this, I was only able to test these 2 systems here. If the Elite Desk does get here before I finish editing, I'll make sure to note anything important.
By the way, I'm afraid that this is actually downloading something from the GitHub with 0.5 megabyte per second speed. So I kind of want to just give it the time it might require.
As I hinted at in the intro, the performance on these isn't mind-blowing or anything, so I'll just go through a few benchmarks really quick. I tested both HP G6 systems, and also grabbed some results from other systems for comparison. First, that EliteDesk 800 G3 Mini with an i5-6500T, and then also this Cambrui Mini PC with an Intel N100. In Cinebench R23, the ProDesk with its 12-core i5 was clearly the best when it comes to the multi-threaded benchmark, but when it comes to single-threaded performance, the improvement from the older HP EliteDesk isn't insane. This pattern is pretty similar here with Geekbench 6 as well. Also, sorry that I don't have the N100 numbers for this one. Moving on to system power draw, when just sitting idle in Windows, the newer HP systems performed the best. Granted, all 4 systems were within just a few watts of each other. I also tested idle power draw in Proxmox after running PowerTop AutoTune and the Auto ASPM script, and with no display connected. Here, the older EliteDesk actually performed just a hair better. When running the multi-threaded Cinebench render, most of the systems had a fairly consistent total power draw, but while the ProDesk eventually sat at around 51 watts, it initially jumped up to 72 watts while the CPU boosted to a higher clock frequency. When looking at just the sustained power draw, the Engage and ProDesk systems drew quite a bit more power than the other two, however, they both performed better as well. If you divide the Cinebench score by the total wattage, you can sort of get a points per watt metric where the high.
So you're saying that XOR gave you problems, but the X11 on Windows gave you none? It's because proprietary software works well in proprietary operating system? No, I'm just saying that Linux could not handle displaying consistently 16 screens with Xorg. And on Windows, if it broke, even if the mosaic broke on Windows, then you could reconfigure it easily, which I did. And for both of those, we've had NVIDIA's support for both Linux and Windows. I could imagine a bash script to scrape 16 displays for adjust accordingly. You know the problem is that, like I said, that the identification for screens changed. So on Windows it was consistent. On Linux, the screen 1 after a reboot was no longer a screen 1, it was screen 2. So if your screen 1 was assigned to, I don't know, this corner, then the identification changed, and then it was like, it magically then appeared here after a reboot.
Higher the number, the more efficient.
By the way, I think I can show you even this screen. There was this conference that we've done. No.
Course of the epidemic.
That's so just, oh my, at this point it was, okay, 3 years ago. Nope. Maybe 4 years. Oh, I think, yeah, this screen, basically. And it even has, I think, 1 extra row of screens.
Efficient the system is. And here, well, the N100 system takes the lead, but we can also see that the older EliteDesk falls quite a bit.
Oh, by the way, something changed, so it might be worth it to give it a bit more time.
Behind in terms of efficiency. Now, I was a bit curious why the 10100T didn't have a similar turbo boost behavior to the 10500T, and I wasn't quite sure if that was due to the CPU or the system it was in. To try and figure it out, I dropped the 10500T into the Engage Flex Mini and reran Cinebench. Now it turns out that it was mostly just the behavior of the CPU, as the clock speeds of the 10500T jumped up as you would expect here, but interestingly, the clock speeds didn't boost quite as high, and therefore
I don't think expecting extreme edge cases to be handled gracefully by Linux is a fair criticism, especially when Windows does it too. Why? Like, everything is about edge cases.
the system didn't draw as much power and performed a bit worse. I double checked that there weren't any settings to tweak some sort of power profile in the BIOS, so I guess one actual difference between the Engage system and the ProDesk is that the Engage seems to run with a slightly lower power profile or something along those lines. Now that's really it for all of my benchmarks and such. If you're really curious to learn more, I highly recommend checking out the Serve the Home website. They have a ton of in-depth reviews and benchmarks, so you can really see how a variety of these tiny mini microsystems perform. I think for the most part, these systems can all handle typical home server or desktop workloads just fine. So to me, what really sets these newer systems apart is the I/O. The EliteDesk G3 Mini and many other systems from this generation typically have one NVMe socket, a SATA port for a 2.5-inch hard drive, and then an M.2 E-key slot for Wi-Fi. With the newer G6 systems, you get 2 NVMe sockets as well as the Flex I/O port. Now the older HP Minis also had a Flex port, but that generation didn't have a ton of great options for it. When it comes to tinkering or self-hosting, really the best use for it was just to remove it entirely.
Like, by the way, I would even say this is kind of an edge case. Like, just this fucking thing taking forever.
Then you could use that space for a cool 3D printer bracket like this one for an M.2 to Ethernet adapter. The G6 models, however, use the Flex I/O V2 cards, which offer a lot more options. Now, most systems come with something boring like HDMI or DisplayPort, but there are much better options. First, there's this USB-C power delivery adapter that came with my ProDesk. This not only adds another USB-C port, but can actually be used to power the system using USB power delivery.
I think expectations is key to my point. Well, I would say that things that are edge cases on Linux are simply not edge cases on Windows. And kind of vice versa. But I would still say that Windows has way less of edge cases compared to Linux on many fronts.
Which is pretty neat. The best options in my opinion though are either the 2.5 gig or 10 gig network cards. The 10 gig adapter is pretty tough to find and it's also pretty expensive. Granted, not really that expensive when compared to other M.2 adapters. But the 2.5 gig adapter can be found much easier for around $30 on eBay. It's really easy to swap these cards out. You just remove a few screws, pop out the old card, and then pop the new one into place. After booting into Proxmox, I had a second network interface. Oh, and I should also mention that this card uses the Intel i225V controller rather than a Realtek controller, so you should have a much better time if you plan to build a pfSense or OpenSense router. There's also that second Flex adapter, which as I mentioned is really only for serial or USB 2 adapters, but it's also a handy removable panel, perfect for mounting something like another 2.5 gigabit NIC. Since I still had that E-key socket available, I picked up this E-key to Intel i226V 2.5 gigabit adapter. I found this great model online from John Douglas, but it wouldn't quite fit my adapter, so I used it as a starting point to make my own and ended up with this. It printed out in just a few minutes and was super easy to screw in place. Because of how tall the adapter was, there was a bit of a clearance issue, so I had to trim away this little clip from the inside of the lid. And then I also used some Captain tape just to make sure and avoid any shorts. It probably would have been just fine without it, but I've been a lot more cautious ever since the incident. That a spark flies off to the side. If you're not sure what I'm talking about because you don't watch every single one of my videos, I was working on a project for this little custom NAS box thing up here where I used an Intel NUC board, but I accidentally shorted it out with a loose wire and I had to buy a whole replacement and it really sucked. So yeah. Anyway, with the system
It happens to me too, like shorting equipment by accident.
booted back up, sure enough, I now had dual 2.5 gigabit NICs. And it looks so cool. Now, if you only needed the one 2.5 gigabit port and you didn't need Wi-Fi, you could also use this E-key port for something else. I wouldn't recommend what I did here though. I was hoping to see if I could get this old eSATA enclosure working by using this M.2 to SATA adapter, and then a SATA to eSATA adapter, and then plug that into the enclosure. and I actually dropped in 4 hard drives, and to my surprise, they all showed up. However, when I actually tried to do anything, well, it got really buggy and Proxmox crashed, and yeah, it wasn't a good time. I probably just don't have a good grasp
Why, my guy, why are you using Proxmox for some basic tasks like that? Ugh.
on how this enclosure works, or really even how the SATA protocol works. Also, this corrosion probably wasn't doing me any favors, so how about moving on to a more reasonable idea, like using this E key to M key adapter for an NVMe SSD. This specific adapter is great here because it reverses the orientation of the SSD so that it can actually fit in the case. Using a 2280 length NVMe SSD was still going to be a bit too big though, so I just snapped off this bit here and used a 2230 SSD instead.
Not gonna lie, I wanna see you tweak your system to your liking. It's done. To be honest, I am an advocate of do not touch as many things as possible. Like, do not touch as many things as possible. I love rising. Sure, it looks nice, but there was this really good video that gave that shared my sentiment, but I do not remember that guy's name for the love of me. And he's like a big YouTuber also. Like, switch to Arc? I don't know, maybe. No. Wish I learned soldering. I would be having a ball today, especially with the low cost of microchips. You say that, but then you discover the topic of designing PCBs, and designing PCBs is so difficult. Oh, yes, here it is. Designing PCBs is such a hard thing to do.
What I use and how I use it is because I want a faster and if you've known me for a little bit, you probably have seen me make fun of Archlinux, you know, maybe like once or
By the way, is this also like very dark for you? It seems like it's kind of dark for me.
twice on Twitter. I still have no idea what is happening here. And now look at me. I'm actually using Archlinux, okay? I'm using it. And you're probably asking yourself, why? Why did you change? Why did you leave your wife and kids and reclaim your virginity? Well, the thing is it's not because of the anime waifus, okay? That did not convince me. It's not because Ye is the greatest package manager of all time. No, it's because of Pewds. That's right, PewDiePie. This man right here, the man who taught me that ninja died of ligma. He shamed me into using Archlinux. But before I tell you what has changed, what my desktop experience is like, why my developer experience is truly better than yours, I first want to tell you why I make my changes. Because if I don't, I'm gonna have 100 comments like, Kitty is better, Western is better, why don't you use this? Why don't you use that? I don't honestly care about your opinion, so please. I ask myself, what is the telos of rice? The
I'm trying to find this one specific fragment, by the way.
telos for me is developer experience, not looks. What I use and how I use it is because I want a faster and better developer experience. This means it doesn't bother me that I use Tmux and not ZellaJ. To me, it's just commands on a CLI. All I want is a terminal multiplexer that works consistently that I know how to use. They're all the same to me, okay? Session, Windows, panes, I don't care. I just want sessions and Windows. I don't even like panes, okay? They're a pain in the ass. And my telos is from a day back at Netflix when my coworker showed me his setup. He used Emacs, the Lord's operating system, and my goodness, it was so fast. It was so smooth. It made my little Better Touch Tools Mac OS X experience look like the base of a mountain.
I mean, he has some pretty good memes, yep.
Comparatively to his, he was at the tippity top, I was at the base, and I hated it. I wanted to be better. I wanted to be faster. I wanted to be smoother. I wanted to be covered in that sweet, sweet coconut oil, but I was not. So my telos of rice is very, very simple. It comes in 4 steps. 1, try not to stray from defaults. Because the more things you have to configure, the more times you'll have to open up some like crappy UI or something and kind of like set up some extra layers of config and all that. It's just, I want nothing to do with it, okay? 2nd, never search with your eyes if possible. Meaning, I want to press one button and go to where I want to go. If I can't do that, I want to fuzzy find to where I want to go. And if then I can't do it, I then will accept searching with my eyeballs or like typing and doing something super slow to get to where I want to go. Oh no, I knew this was going to happen. I knew this was going to happen. My microphone stand finally broke. Oh my gosh. The single worst developer experience of all time has to be the Mac OS X like explode feature. You know when people go like, and then they search just for for what they. Oh my gosh! When I see someone use that, I actually just genuinely think it's a crime against developers. It is the worst.
I mean, basically what he said about defaults. The more you customize, the harder the system is. It's harder to maintain. Like, so many things can break, so many things can be out of date. The worst thing you can do is to customize your system with some weird bash scripts that are firing from who knows where. Like from, I don't know, bash profile or I don't know, RC local, even though I don't think it's possible anymore, but still.
Since the adapter was barely brushing up against one of the other SSDs, I used some more Captain tape here for safety, but in the end, everything fit just fine. Now sure, this SSD would be limited to just one lane of PCIe Gen 3, but that's still kind of close to a gigabyte per second in terms of bandwidth, and would probably work just fine for a boot SSD, leaving you with 2 NVMe sockets for mirrored storage, VMs, or whatever. Or you could take advantage of those extra PCIe lanes for other cool adapters. And if this still isn't enough storage for you, well, if you look closely, you can see that there's a tiny little connector labeled hard drive, and it actually looks nearly identical to the SATA connector on the older EliteDesk G3. Now, I just assumed that these G6 systems didn't have an option for a hard drive since they came with an extra NVMe slot, but as it turns out, you could originally configure these to also come with a 2.5-inch hard drive. Obviously, neither of my systems included the cage or the adapter, but I did still have my 2.5-inch adapter from the older EliteDesk. Now, I probably should have been safe and checked online beforehand, but I just sent it and hooked up the G3's adapter and, well, it actually worked. Unfortunately, if you didn't already have this adapter, it looks like the cable and drive cage assembly for the G6 models will cost you a fair bit on eBay, but you might be able to find a better deal if you just buy the SATA adapter for one of the earlier models. In that case though, you would have to get a bit creative when it comes to mounting solutions, but hey, technically you could fit 3 NVMe SSDs and a 2.5-inch hard drive all in this tiny little enclosure. Oh yeah, I also noticed this little...
I don't know. Like, before I had hope, but now I have no idea what the fuck is going on. Yeah, no fucking shit. That was like 15 minutes ago. Why would I use the customization scripts? I love doing stuff manually when it comes to configuring .zshrc or configuring... I mean, good for you, sure. I remember when I worked at one previous company, and basically there was the reason why the reason why I'm so, as a professional, against all of those customization is that because my line of work, I just log on to many servers, right? The moment I log on to those servers, I have none of that customization. And I've already had like job candidates that they've had, you know, their knowledge was based on, I don't know, Kali Linux or stuff like that, and then you basically tell them to log on to this Debian box or Ubuntu or CentOS or whatever, where it's basically bash, and they do not know how to do anything. Keen Lackway, what are we doing? So currently, hey, hello, and we are basically trying to install Battle.net client on Linux. And we are almost an hour and a half in with little to no progress. So basically, while we are giving it time, we are also just watching some tech YouTube videos.
second fan header that I think would have been used for a dedicated
By the way, I'm giving this like a minute more. After that, I'm clicking abort and I will try to do some other things to make it work.
GPU if needed, and I'll spare you the details of how I came up with this janky solution here, but yeah, technically you can add a PWM fan if you wire it up right. Unfortunately though, there's no software control, so it's probably not all that useful, and realistically it's probably going to be easier to figure out using USB power or something.
What's Battle.net? Blizzard client, World of Warcraft, Diablo.
Something that actually is useful though is
An unexpected error. Set regedit file. So once again, it's wine fault. Okay, maybe let's try installing wine. Not gonna lie, I'm somebody who respects opinions. No need for elitism. Sure. You have your opinion, I have mine. I mean, like I said, if system is for personal use, sure, like do whatever. But like I said, like I also I think talked about that in one of my other videos. I like to run a system that I'm working with at work just to learn it better. And that taught me that customizing a Linux, like the ability to customize Linux, for me is not necessarily a plus. It's basically an area to introduce a whole lot of bad idea and bad practices to. Like you could say I hate Linux, and I am a big Windows advocate. To be honest, I am kinda surprised that it actually it's Linux that won and not FreeBSD. I think when Linux is done, we will all come crawling back to FreeBSD. Okay, we have installed wine. Will this change anything?
is remote management. Since these systems were designed for professional work environments, they include Intel's AMT platform. This means you should be able to control some of the functions remotely, even if the system is powered down. After setting up a password and configuring the network settings in the BIOS, I was able to use some software called Mesh Commander to connect to and manage the ProDesk. With this, you can remotely power on and off the system, get access to serial over LAN, and more. But unfortunately, the ProDesk doesn't support KVM functionality. This is where you'd be able to have a video output and use a virtual mouse and keyboard. And I think this is actually one of those features that separates the Elite Desk from the ProDesk. Okay, so the Elite Desk actually came in while I was editing this video, and I can confirm that the KVM functionality does work. Now, like I said, this does support serial over LAN, but I've actually never been able to get that working. It's always just been a blank screen for me. But I decided today was the day I would try and figure it out. I pretty quickly learned that as long as you don't have a display connected to the system, it works in the BIOS menu just fine. But once you boot into the operating system, well, I once again just had nothing. After a bit of Googling and tinkering, I figured out that I could check dmessage and proxmox to see which serial device was active, and then I could make some changes to the grub config, this service to finally get a console working properly. It's not perfect, it's a bit sluggish, but it's much cheaper than buying a KVM.
Okay, we'll leave that video at that. I totally screwed my Ubuntu once installing XBMC, which actually traces the OS and not installed the app. I have no idea what XBMC is. It's honestly surprising that Linux beat FreeBSD in terms of market share. I think if we didn't count Android and phones, because FreeBSD is a main operating system for firewalls, for network devices, like the big boy network boxes are most often running FreeBSD because it just has a superior netcode. The game consoles like PlayStation, right? It's pre-Kodi. Oh yeah, okay, yeah. Now I remember. Okay. Four years ago. Or to be complete, Kodi is fork of XBMS. I haven't heard those names. Oh my gosh, like I think last time I touched Kodi or whatever was 5 years ago. Maybe in the next few months I could switch to FreeBSD. Personally, I was thinking about that, but I would basically need some actual crash course into FreeBSD because so many things are unavailable if you basically have a Linux mindset. Like so many commands are not actually Unix-like, so they are not available on the FreeBSD. And you basically need to kind of switch your whole your way of thinking that you've had with Linux. I have written my media server called Rusty Spud. I mean, at work we have like 1 or 2 FreeBSD boxes and they are terrible to maintain. Okay, basically this is not working. But one of the fixes was that to ensure that the directory you're installing to is empty. So first of all, okay, so it's basically there. I had my doubts that this might not even exist. But if it's there, then what is the goddamn problem? I think I will do like one last try. What do they mean by for existing install of Battle.net? You know what? And I even kind of planned to play some games. But it turns out I don't think it will be happening. Okay, so it's saying that it's missing some x86. Could that be the problem? The old saying of don't mess with the boot files is pretty pointless if you know what you're doing, which I do. Yep. That's why I kind of hate on grub so much and really like system deboot or just UEFI and unified and UEFI in general. Like pretty much nothing is required. Would love an alternative to group 2, but I don't know how. Just try secure boot, like literally uninstall grub and install secure boot. System deboot. Mm. Jesus, League of Legends. Oh. Those are pretty old. Pretty old posts. Okay, so let's do one last switcheroo. I remember playing on Linux. Yeah, I guess it also I have some faint memory of that. I prefer manual installs to guided installs. Depends. I prefer fully automated installs. The zero-touch ones. Okay. To be honest, my experience installing Battle.net was an absolute delight, albeit in Windows. Hey, listen, I can hit this restart button right here. We can log on to my Windows instance and see how everything just works. Last checked an hour ago. Your wine version is up to date. So is it downloading something? Okay, maybe that will change something. Wine could not find wine mono package. Yes, please.
Single feature of all time. Like, how did you get here? How did you manage to start living this life? Third thing is don't switch to something because it's newer. That's not a reason to use something. There has to be a real reason to use it. 4, create tools that make your experience better. Don't create tools to save like a keystroke. So obviously the biggest change I've made is this.
Yeah, by the way, what he said.
Something. There has to be a real reason to use it. 4, create tools that make your experience better. Don't create tools to save like
This screen is one thing, but what he says.
A keystroke. So
don't create tools to save a keystroke. I do remember one time there was like a Nano versus Vim debate in the office. And also just Just like I think it was either Nano versus Vim or Vim versus fully fledged IDEs, like I don't know, Visual Studio Code. And some guy said that the microseconds you save by using Vim keystrokes add up. And during the year of being a developer, you are saving large amounts of time. Like, those people really do exist who think so.
So obviously the biggest change I've made is this. There's no more screen tearing. I know 8 years of quality content, and it's gone. I no longer have screen tearing. It's kind of a sad day. Pour one out for screen tearing. I now use Hyperland as my window manager. Look at these rounded corners. Look at the gap. Look at this nice blue window outline. I know, I have said that I would not want to use gaps, but guess what? I'm a new boy. I'm gonna give it a shot, okay? I think that you should always do that. Try just giving it a shot. Just see how it feels. And if you don't like the gaps, get rid of the gaps. So far, I'm still on the fence. And also, by the way, I just want you to know this. Absolutely not. No animations, okay? So you see this? You see these animations? No, they're dead. They're gone.
I use NeoVim because it has Lua built in, and also I dislike Vim script. Yeah, I mean, I do get your point, but personally I only use Vim just to keep, like, you know, to keep it kind of in memory, and mostly because I do had cases where I had to fall back to VI and Bourne Shell, which means that I'm just trying to use it to not forget everything, just for some emergency situations I might have at work. Okay. We might be getting there. Okay, do not attempt to log on to Battle.net. Cool. Where's my installation finished button? We did a chat. No, not yet. We've been here before. We've been here last stream. Many times, in fact. So, is it downloading something for the Blizzard app?
Want a quick, instant, no transition, because if there's a transition, I just sit there and I just look at the transition. I just salivate over the transition. You know why? I have too much ADHD or something. I don't know what happens. I can't help but to just look at it, be transfixed by the slow motion. If you make a transition 5 seconds long, I'm like stun locked. I'm like,
Speaking of fast transitions, here's a word from our sponsor.
Whether you are a vibe coder or an artisanally free-range NeoVim user, you still need CI to build your binaries, run tests, and publish your releases. That's where Blacksmith comes in. It takes your GitHub actions and with a one-line change makes them faster and cheaper. Get your CI running on high-performance CPUs instead of GitHub's old servers. We're happy to have them as a sponsor for this episode because, just like us, this one is truly a no-brainer. Sign up and enjoy faster GitHub action workflows at a much lower price. Blacksmith, twice the speed and half the cost. Check them out at blacksmith.sh.
I've been working on my transitions. Anyways, back to the video.
I'm also trying to draw.
Not sure if you've seen that, but when I press play, stop, and boom. So maybe we are still waiting for this.
drive my experience more through my window manager, because before I used to do a lot through the terminal. Now I'm trying to move it up, level it into the window manager. So if I just...
Okay, I think we'll try to reboot. Then we'll try to launch the bottlenet. See if it tries downloading anything. And I hope we will have some sort of success, but to be honest, I am not very, enthusiastic when it comes to this. Jesus. System D save us all. Like, why do I have to wait 2 minutes? Jesus Christ. It's even longer than it would take on Windows. Yeah, just need to do this fix. Why did this reopen, like in this macOS fashion? I have no idea. Updates for what? Sure. Oh my, this old-time task manager. And it's not working. Nothing. I'm sorry. I don't think this I don't see this working tonight. Like, Excuse me, what the fuck? What the hell just happened? Why did it work from the desktop icon and not from the Lutris menu? Okay, this is the moment of truth. Because everything up until now, I've managed to do I have managed to do also on previous streams, including the logging. Just give me a second because my phone with my Battle.net app is being a little bit crazy right now. It works. Oh my gosh. Previously this was like a blank screen. Okay. So basically, the list of steps is can be summarized as follows. Basically, do whatever and hope for the best. Like, hope for the desktop shortcut to appear. I do wonder if it will work well enough to basically play and download as you're playing. I kinda got tired with transmog, so I just done whatever. Yeah, it's probably just downloading all the assets now. Oh yeah, the warband. Oh shit, I'm sorry. You are not hearing any audio. But if that has succeeded, do you know what that means? That means that next time this will be more of a gaming stream, basically to assess the stability. So I would give it like a short moment to download stuff. I mean, we have like I said, a gigabit, so we have like 100 megabytes per second of download. Can't wait. Pipe, wire, or pulse? To be honest, I have no idea. It's also very weird that there are still two competing audio systems on Linux. Like, why is this not streamlined yet? I mean, I think it's whatever the KDE defaults to. Oh, some achievement. I mean, I don't want to say I am a veteran player of WoW, but I do have some interesting stuff already farmed. You see, it's invisible. Okay. It seems to be working, at least briefly, so I might do a longer gameplay some other day. I'm not really playing WoW right now, but I do have a very large sentiment and many fond memories of WoW. Oh, it's even an upgrade. Jesus Christ. Where is it? No, my trademark laughing skull helmet. How many FPS, by the way? 60, which means we might have VSync. Yep. Oops. The game window zoomed out. Okay, and without, it's 70. I mean, in order to basically fiddle around with those options, I need to wait for the whole game to download. But still. Like I said, I hope I don't get banned, because this account is pretty fucking old. Like 2015? Or even older than that. Yeah, 2011, I think. I'm not sure what's my earliest achievement, but still. Yeah, animations are not yet loaded properly, not yet downloaded. Okay, so we have finally succeeded. Did it keep my login info? One last thing to check, and after that we are done for today. Yep, so it remembered my credentials. Which is fine. Okay, so I will let it download. And once again, thank you all for being here. We have actually succeeded in something on this stream. Like, previously I couldn't do it, but now, with the power of chat, with the power of viewers, of those expectations placed upon me, it's a miracle it worked, as you just saw yourself. Okay. So yeah, I think that's all for tonight. So, like, subscribe, you know, do whatever. It's not necessarily for you that you are here, but maybe for the people that are watching the VOD. And, you know, I hope I'll see you next time. See ya. Treat yourself to a cold beer. Thanks. I think I will. Bye bye.